This is the classical period from 1000 BC to 500 CE, the uniting large regions. So the first chapter is chapter 2, and it's over China. And first, you had the Zhou dynasty from 1029 to 258 BC. It was the longest of the classical Chinese dynasties, but there was nothing else significant except they used bronze. Next, you had the Qin dynasty, which is from 221 to 202 BC, and is the first imperial dynasty of China. And the ruler was Shi Huangdi, who was very brutal but effective. He used legalist policies and wanted to minimize the role of aristocrats and landowners. No one actually liked him, though. Someone described him as having a heart of a tiger and a wolf. He put up the Great Wall to protect against the north. And he put up a national census and standardized money and weights. Overall, it was efficient, but no one liked him, so they revolted. Next was the Han Dynasty from 202 BC to 220 CE. This was the Golden Age. It reduced brutality but continued centralization. Wu Ti was the famous Han ruler. He believed in peace. It encouraged Confucianism, and they were invaded by the Huns. Notice we have Shang from Mulan saying we must defeat the Huns. And China was in chaos. What will happen next? Find out in Unit 3. If you want to remember the order of the dynasties, they go backwards in alphabetical. So first you had Z, then Q, then H. So then Chinese philosophies. First you had Confucianism, which was it emphasized the importance of unity and hierarchy. China blew this out of proportion, though. They made this very important. Husbands and fathers were superior. Parents could punish disobedient children brutally. In some cases, they even killed their children. Tight family organization helped solidify economic and social views, and the founder was Confucius. Imagine that. Then you had Taoism, the founder was Laozi. He believed in nature's harmony, good and evil, balance, etc. Here you have a picture. And then there was legalism, which was used during the Qin and early Han. They believed that human nature was evil, and you needed to rule by force with authoritarian state, and it wasn't as significant as the other two. Note that the Silk Road was started by the Han Dynasty. It was very important in the transfer of goods and ideas. It connected Chinese, Indian, Persian, and Mediterranean civilizations. No.
Okay, that's it.
Then we had Chapter 3, which went over India. First you had the Mauryan Empire, which went from 322 to 185 BC. The founder was Chandragupta. It was the largest empire at the time. It was highly autocratic, or however you pronounce that. Chandragupta's grandson and successor was Ashoka, who united the Indian subcontinent and converted to Buddhism. He promoted Buddhism a lot. Then after Ashoka, regional kingdoms resurfaced, and then the Guptan Empire arose, and it went from 319 to 535 CE, and this was India's golden age. It was peaceful, and there's lots of science and art, lots of trade, and they invented the concept of zero, but they were overthrown again by the Huns. And then religions, there was Hinduism and Buddhism. And Hinduism was very old, it had no founder, and the majority of people in India were believed in Hinduism. And then there were gurus, who were mystics, and they believed in caste system and reincarnation. And Dharma meant the law of moral consequences. And then there was Buddhism, which was invented by Siddhartha Gautama, which was Buddha. And this developed around 500 BC, and it believed that desire led to suffering, and it spread through Ashoka. And then you have Chapter 4, which was over the Mediterranean, which is Greece and Rome. First there was Persia, and the founder was Cyrus the Great. The book didn't really emphasize it much, but they developed Zoroastrianism, which was monotheistic. And then there was Greece, which went from 740 to 146 BC. This foundation of the West. They had city-states with Sparta and Athens were the two major ones. celebrated with competitions such as the Olympics. Greek literature consisted mostly of epics such as Iliad and Odyssey. Peloponnesian Wars went from 431 to 404 BC, which was Athens and Sparta fighting for Greek control. Sparta won but failed to achieve political unification. Conquered by Alexander the Great, which he was tutored by Aristotle. Aristotle and Socrates were important philosophers, and Socrates taught Plato. And there was Rome from 509 BC to 476 CE. And there was the Punic Wars, which was Rome fought Phoenician armies and seized the entire western Mediterranean, including Greece and Egypt, and they had a very complicated collapse. And then chapter 5, which is just other stuff, miscellaneous. Civilizations formed in America and Africa as well, but they were not classy enough because they were not in the classical, considered classical. Central America, there was the Mayans, who went from 250 to 900 CE, the only fully developed writing system in the New World, and they were known for their calendar. And then there were the Aztecs, Toltecs, and Olmecs, and Incas. They also existed, but they weren't important enough because the book didn't emphasize them. And then there was also Ethiopia and Africa. And then there were changes and continuities over time. The major changes were establishment of cultures that impacted other regions, the setting up of internal trade and regional specialization, the conquering of other peoples, and the creation of empires, and developments in philosophy, politics, and art. Then the major continuities were there were no great technological developments, no great developments in transportation, rural and classical culture remained separated, patriarchy, and it was built on the key achievements of earlier times, such as money and law, etc. And that's the end.